Yeah, they squabbling out there now. Yeah.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
You know, one of the first things black Americans did after slavery? We ran for office. Our ancestors were poor and illiterate for the most part, and still they stood up for us. Nowadays, these black leaders stand up for everyone else but us. Listen, whether you're white, whether you're black, whatever, if you feel that these current politicians are not doing right by you, then you run for office and you become the politician who would do right by the people and for yourself as well. Black Americans, we have fought in every single war this nation has had. We have fought for this country even when this country consistently fights against us. It is time for us to stand up and fight for ourselves. Republican, Democrats, neither one's done well for us. Let's replace every single last one of them. Let's run for office or they're going to keep running us over.
I am Greg Marcel Dixon, and I approve this message.
All right, welcome once again to the Beatzilla PDX official show, the midweek report news break. And we are here this evening. And this is, of course, a premiere versus the typical live because, as most of you know, we have a space earlier. So with that being said, this is going to be the premiere video because the space over on Twitter was the live event. So with that being said, please like and share. Please like and share as you're coming on in. Please like and share. And also, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so at this moment. Hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell that says notifications and hit the word all. That way you'll be notified anytime this channel goes live or a video is uploaded. And without any further ado, maybe some of y'all have already seen, or maybe y'all didn't because you guys might have already started tuning out of mainstream media and the work that they do there. And you're definitely tuning out from the benign neglect policy, do nothing for black folks, Democrats, that has been trying to figure out how it's going to muster up black votes, especially from black male voters. And here's one thing that the Democrats really have to address. How do you address all of the anti-black male propaganda that has came from the Democratic machine in the past 8 to 10 years? How do we get there? So nonetheless, let's just start with a refresher course about who we're talking about. So listen.
I'm not always going to only talk about what we can do for black people.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No.
And with that being said, they are here on MSNBC talking about how to get black votes when you weren't going to do anything just specifically for black folks. Now you want to talk to black folks. Well, you've already shown us your disrespect. So let's hear what she has to say to Reverend Al Sharpton. I say Reverend loosely. And see, she's starting to pull this coalition thing. And let's just take a refresher course on what the tone of that coalition actually sounds like. Again, a walk down memory lane of this Biden administration.
This country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do.
Meaning that white people are good and everything is better when white people are around in majority numbers. Black people will not just ruin it, but it'll be ruined because black people are more in numbers. White people are less in numbers. And so then we'll have to get used to working along with Hispanics while the white folks enjoy what about their space in being a minority. What does that mean? Oh, that means that they are trying to find themselves still being the ruling class of supremacy, which, yeah, that's not going to happen. Anyway, with that being said, here it is, two melanated faces, one foundational Black American and another Indian Jamaican, and who they often lie so much and say that she's Black, to which she is not. She is not of our lineage. She isn't even Black. Her mother is Caucasian. Her father has yet to actually technically identify as Black because, of course, for those who know, there's a heavy Indian Caribbean population. So for a lot of people that just think Jamaican means Black, it does not. With that being said, let's immediately get into this interview so we can start breaking this down.
In the election, you hear these polls.
Hold on.
Are you concerned about turnout, especially among Blacks in the election? You hear these polls. Are you concerned about that?
I am always concerned about turnout, whatever election we are talking about, because
just that quick. Just that quick. She missed the mark. He asked you a very specific question. Are you concerned about Black turnout? Well, I'm concerned about all turnout of all elections. That ain't what he asked you. He asked you, see, again, so you know, this is, why is she answering it like that? Because the benign neglect policy for foundational Black Americans has not changed.
let us, in a moment where we thank everybody for what they did to turn out in 2020, appreciate that it takes an effort to turn out to vote. People have things to do. They have obligations. If somebody's working 2 or 3 jobs, if they've got, a bunch of children and they need to worry about who's going to take care of the kids while they go vote, or people have obligations every day. But the people who, especially the people who have most at stake in the election, are often the people who least have the luxury of taking time out of their day to do something that is not an immediate obligation. So I recognize that. And I recognize that when people make the effort to register to vote, to fill out that ballot, to go to the polls and vote, it is an effort that we should appreciate and be thankful for when they make it.
Okay. I just need you. We're going to do this. Let's go back. Fair use, because this is an educational tool. The question was, and look at what you see on the screen. This is Vice President Harris on Black voter turnout for 2024. Let's see how she's answering a question about Black voter turnout.
Are you concerned about turnout, especially among Blacks in the election? You hear these polls. Are you concerned about that?
I am always concerned about turnout, whatever election we are talking about. Because let us, in
Black voter
a moment
turnout,
where we
miss.
thank everybody for what they did to turn out in 2020, appreciate that it takes an effort to turn out to vote. People have things to do. They have obligations. If somebody's
what is she
working 2 or
talking
3
about?
jobs, if they've got, a bunch of children and they need to.
Ma'am, the question was, are you concerned about Black voter turnout? Well, first off, let's thank those that turned out. That ain't your problem, and that ain't what you're facing. You're facing tangibles, no vote, and it's really becoming way more evident within your party. And then they sent you out here on TV to do the flim-flammy thing. We already don't trust you, ma'am. So there is no reason to get up here and start doing this. You might as well have stayed home.
Worry about who's going to take care of the kids while they go vote, or
wow.
People have obligations every day, but the people who, especially the people who have most at stake in the election, are often the people who least have the luxury of taking time out of their day to do something that is not an immediate obligation.
Well, when we're telling you, you either put policies in place specifically for foundational Black Americans, then right there, you already have it. So you know what your answer is. You have to produce policies for these people. To whom is your base? So you're talking about people. Your people are not your base. Black voters are. He asked you about Black voters, not about people. See, she went into this peoplehood thing. Isn't that kind of interesting?
So I recognize that. And I recognize that when people make the effort to register to vote, to fill out that ballot, to go to the polls and vote, it is an effort that we should appreciate and be thankful for when they make it. I'm worried about it because I also know that there has been a lot of effort and laws that have been passed to try and make it more difficult for people to vote. I mean, can you imagine, Rav? In the United States of America, we went through all these fights, the March on Washington, John Lewis, all that.
John Lewis.
And these so-called leaders who are so bold as to unapologetically propose and pass laws to make it more difficult for the American people to vote.
Oh, Lord, what is wrong with this woman? She has went on for about 3 minutes now. Oh, well, there's almost 2 minutes. Almost 2 minutes. And the question is she concerned about Black voter turnout? All she's talking about is some voter rights for people. Has nothing to do with what he asked her. Because truth be told, the question should start leaning towards, well, these are the things that we have for the Black community. She isn't even doing that. This is not even giving you a lie. This is ignoring the topic and the point of his question altogether.
The gall. So I do worry that we have to do everything we can to remind people of why it's important and also fight against those people who are trying to make it difficult.
She said nothing about any reason for voting. All she's talking about is a bunch of historical things that we already know, which has nothing to do with voter rights of United States citizens, especially those of the lineage of chattel slavery. Our citizenship is completely fine, ma'am. We do not have an issue of our voting rights being taken away. To take our voting rights away, family, just listen to what we keep hearing. If you're going to take our voter rights away, that also means white women's voter rights would be nullified at the same time. Since those two are hand in hand, they're not talking. You don't hear no white women worried about voting rights. But the very same law that protects white women's votes is the same thing that they're telling you we need to fear. Then white women ain't saying we're in jeopardy of losing our votes. Democracy is in jeopardy because women can't vote. They're not even talking about women's voter rights being bothered because they know this is a load of hogwash.
One of the things we're doing with the march is that we have co-chairing it anti-defamation.
Yeah, that's great.
Asian groups.
Yeah.
And UNIDOS.
Yeah.
Because I think, as you have always said through your career, it's about bringing everybody together.
The coalition.
Not our job. Not our job. And you, Reverend Al, just explained the problem with your treasonhood. You brought everybody else along while your group just got ignored by the top office in the land. This person lives in the White House. And when you asked her about black voters, she started going off talking about people and voting rights. And this is why we have to remind everybody why it's so important to vote. The question was about black voters. Black voters need something for that vote. We did not hear that yet, and you're still not hearing.
And if there's no coalition, there's no victory for any of us. And
wrong.
Yeah.
Now they're telling you a lot.
And UNIDOS.
Yeah.
Because I think, as you have always said through your career, it's about bringing everybody together.
The coalition.
And if there's no coalition, there's no victory for any of us.
Listen, this is absolutely targeting delineation, family. I hope you are hearing this very well. So the one thing that she can seem to address when it comes down to black folks is black people should not leave the coalition. That has not, of course, worked for us. So she is stressing that black voters need to be looking at this minority coalition, the same minority coalition that never comes up and speaks on behalf of black issues, that never, ever, ever stands with black folks when it comes down to reparations, but also never stood with us about getting our anti-hate crime bill. While hate crimes against black people have steadily topped the charts and is on the rise, unlike the lies that they will tell you about all other groups, foundational black Americans are under attack. So much so that you can see what you saw in Montgomery, where people feel comfortable assaulting random black people. That is a rise in anti-black hate. Guess what they're not going to call it, though? They're not going to call it a hate crime, although even white witnesses can tell you that they were calling this man the N-word before they attacked him. There's no reason. And you don't hear this White House getting involved now, do you? So let's just keep that in mind.
And is that what you hope, that despite all of the acrimony we're hearing from some circles, despite you being targeted, at least politically, is that what you hope in this hour?
Yes.
That we can do is get beyond whatever tribal differences and fight for all of us?
Yes, and when we look again as commemorating 60 years ago and the movement as it was and fueled and inspired in those days.
60 years ago, we're not going back in a time machine 60 years ago. The movement is a progressive movement, meaning that the movement goes forward. Look at what they keep trying to get you to do. They keep trying to get you to accept old ideas, old idealisms, as far as when it comes down to laying down and letting everyone walk on over your back as a bridge so they can get what they need and your people still starve. We are not at that moment in history, family. We are at the moment of the future, and this absolutely is unacceptable.
There was a strong commitment then to the coalition. And again, if you talk about the ingredients, the essential ingredients in a movement that is about progress, the coalition is one of the most essential.
No, it is not. No, it is not. Foundational Black Americans leaving the coalition has you now screaming coalition. That means it's been foundational Black Americans the entire time pushing this. We are not your mules. We are not play toys. We are not baby dolls. We are not here for your amusement. We are here as living beings who have been oppressed in this land and are owed a tremendous debt. And if you still want to be in our faces today, ignoring the debt that we are owed, then I believe we should turn our backs to you as well and speak with our vote. Shout out Dr. Cornel West. Let's see how his campaign does. Because truth be told, and here's how I'm going to let you all know. If Cornel West quits, those votes will not go to Joe Biden. So Cornel West, you better be serious. Because if you get grassroots support will absolutely fall off as soon as you put this woman right here in the mix. You're done. Absolutely done. And you will do more damage to the DNC's future than this is right now. So if y'all want to go down that road and think it's going to work, it will be the biggest political mistake of a party in history. Mark my words. Just like I told you, you would be spending your budget in 2022 for 2024. And you did.
Which is grounded in the understanding and belief that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us.
I would like to know what the descendants of chattel slavery in this country have in common with any of these tethers, any of these Asians, any of the small hats, any of these other sexual gender groups. What do we have in common? We're owed a debt, they're not. What do we have in common? We are descendants of slavery in this country. They are not. We are consistently targeted by this government for oppression. They are not. We are targeted by the race soldiers that they have in their law enforcement. They are not. Where is the commonality that she speaks of? Because she'll say we have common ground, but she can't tell you what that is. They never can. Don't let people cliche you and phrase you into death.
And also a certain level of faith to just understand
Whoa.
and be guided by knowing that we all have a common purpose and a common destiny.
No, we don't. No, we do not. What common destiny does foundational Black Americans share with any other group? That's why we are we know we are an exceptional group. So where is this coming in at, my vice president ma'am here? What are you talking about? She is just smiling and lying like it makes sense. It makes none.
And so let's do this together, right?
When you think about it.
So foundational Black Americans should link up with all of these other groups who have already been openly anti-Black, even since you guys have taken the White House. We should look to do that. Why? What would be our incentive of doing that?
They call it Bidenomics, some of the stuff that you and the president have done and it getting through the people. You're the vice president of the United States, the vice president, and you're at the official residence. When you wake up in the morning, what do you think about?
Oh, my Lord. Right. You're a Black woman at the White House, and here you are talking to a Black man that for some reason has not spoken about Black people's issues. Why are you in front of us talking about our votes when you aren't addressing our issues, which is required to do if you want the vote?
What is Vice President Harris have on her mind when she wakes up? I know how all Americans, based on where they are, have got a variety of things. But share with me, what is it that you have on your mind when you wake up every morning?
Our democracy. Rev, I think everything is at stake right now. When I think about democracy, I think of it as its nature is there's a duality, there are two pieces to it. There's one aspect of a democracy that is about strength. When a democracy is intact, it strengthens the people, it protects it, and fights for fundamental freedoms, individual.
Oh, whoa. See, and that's where you just lost it, ma'am. That when it was intact, Black people were in chains in this country, in chattel slavery and being sold to and fro. And these people thought no different of it, didn't think it was horrible, didn't think it should go away, didn't think it should stop. No, ma'am, that ain't what took place.
Rights. It's a fight for order against chaos. It strengthens. On the other hand, democracy, incredibly fragile.
No, white supremacy is fragile.
It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And right now, there are.
Okay, so let me break that down. Let me decrypt that message. White supremacy is fragile, and white supremacy will only last as long as we lay down our agenda and help white supremacy continue. She's not talking about democracy. She's talking about white supremacy. Because again, if you're talking about democracy, then why aren't the white women up in arms? Well, they're also a huge voter base. So you could not ever take our voting rights away without taking white women's away, which also affects gender as well. So you're done. No, ma'am. Don't let these people lie to you. Don't let them shame you, because they shame you because you don't have the information.
That are attempting to purposely, I believe, weaken our democracy, purposely attempting to erode a sense of pride in the fact that we as the United States have held ourselves out and have been considered to be one of the strongest democracies in the world.
Yes, and that was a lie. This is the truth. And this is the truth. This is who America is. What are you talking about? And since the question was about Black voters, maybe get into what this actually means. Because the African American community stood up again for Joe Biden. What did he say? You've always had my back and I'll have yours. Ma'am, why are you talking about a coalition? He said the African American community. You're talking about a coalition. And not once have you mentioned the agenda of Black people at all.
And right now, in the context of the world, people are watching, wondering, what is the future of democracy in America? And I mention that because I have been traveling the world. I have met with over 100 world leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings. And here's the thing about being the United States of America. When we walk in those rooms, chin up, shoulders back, with the self-appointed and earned authority to talk about the importance of rule of law, human rights, democracy. But the thing about being a role model, people watch what you do to see if it lines up with what you say.
And it doesn't. And so when you're talking about democracy, how are black people being treated in America? Because here's the thing, you're trying to pose yourself off as the moral authority of the planet, and you keep ignoring how people are being done in your own home. So that goes to show the moral fabric and the moral fiber of how you have been walking around so prideful. But I believe that the good book says, pride goeth before the fall.
So one of the things one of the things I wake up thinking about is not only what an erosion of democracy will mean for the American people, what it will mean invariably for people around the world. Can you imagine the young women who are fighting in a country ruled by a dictator or an autocrat, and they're...
Ma'am, what does any of this now look at where she's going. She's going, this is your pitch to the black voters. This is shameful. And just to show you this is what disdain looks like. This is professionalism. This is how you show disdain for a group, with professionalism and political jargon.
Fighting for just basic rights, and that autocrat looking at them and saying, well, you want to hold out the United States as your example? Look at what they're doing. You be quiet. Understand what this means.
Well, how about that white supremacy problem that you have in America? Because nobody's looking at your democracy. All around the world, people are talking about this. People have nothing in their mouths about voting. We have Jordan Neely. We have a migrant crisis that your White House caused. Nobody is talking about what you're talking about, ma'am. So they're looking at you because you're hypocrites. Why don't you speak to the reason that you're a hypocrite?
This is very much on my mind.
No, it ain't.
And you've said frequently, not on your watch.
Yes.
We fought many women, blacks, others to become part of this democracy.
That's right.
On your watch, you're not going to let it go back to pre-1950 days.
I love my...
I don't remember asking you.
No, this. I get that in there.
Shade tree nigga.
My country too much, and I'm not giving up on my country. I'm not.
Do you feel that the whole question of where we are in history, one day some young lady is going to look at your picture the way you look at Thurgood's picture and John Lewis' picture?
John Lewis ain't nobody. I don't know why y'all keep bringing John Lewis up. John Lewis is a 2000, he's a new millennial. I don't know what, they tried to make him some late in life figure. John Lewis is a coward and a coon. We don't celebrate John Lewis in our community. We never even knew he existed other than he was in the pictures with Martin Luther King. And then he's the person that got his butt whipped by the police and told the police, thank you for your service. John Lewis and Thurgood Marshall, number one, should not be mentioned in the same breath.
What do you hope they look at and say?
I hope they...
Who is this Caucasian woman? They look at her and say. Who is this Caucasian woman?
They say that they will say, I can do anything, even if it hasn't been done before.
She has no idea of the history of Thurgood Marshall at all. That's why she couldn't even, and he's the Supreme Court justice. Isn't this woman an attorney? There was nothing of Thurgood Marshall that she could even recollect to speak on.
I will not be burdened by what has been. I will believe in what can be. That's what I hope.
What do you hope?
Oh, really? You won't be burdened by what has been? Well, then you should be kicking them reparations down the pike then, huh?
Hope that people will finally be able to say that this gesture that you're most proud of that you've been able to do with the president? I know we have Bidenomics.
Yeah.
What are the things you're most proud of?
There's a lot. I have to tell you, Rev, there's a lot. I mean, I'm proud of, for example, an issue I've worked on for a long time, the issue of maternal health. Putting that on the stage of the White House, where we're talking about the fact that in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, we have the highest rates of maternal mortality, where Black women are 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth.
The very first time that the word black came out of her mouth, when the very first question was about black voters, black does not come out of Kamala Harris's mouth until 8 minutes and 49 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. 8 minutes and 49 seconds. Think of how long you've heard her ramble. The question was beginning about this question. Nothing about this conversation has changed from what he asked her about. This should still be pertaining to black people, but there is nothing she's saying that pertains to black folks until now, until she could start talking about, well, see, now all of a sudden she's talking about mortality. Family, don't get caught up with that, because this is a way to get into the reproductive health talk, which is only baby deletion. So they're not concerned about getting women the right health coverage, because if they were so concerned about black mortality in maternal mortality rates, they would do something about it. There would be a policy in place, because if this was white women, see, here's the thing. White women are covered with the insurance, also covered with the care of having a system which makes sure they're taken care of. So if you look out for your black people, like we're talking about here, black voters, then the mortality rate would be taken care of within itself. But preventing delineation and preventing us from caring for our own is putting us in harm's way by anti-black systems out here that already exist, that, of course, VP Harris says she won't focus on.
Native women 1.5 or 2 times more likely, rural women 1.5 times more likely, and we're putting in place a requirement that it be taken seriously. For example, when I first came in, basically I challenged the states extend postpartum care for women through Medicaid from 2 months to 12 months. Only 3 states were doing it. Now over 35 are doing it, right? I'm proud of that, what that will mean.
Only problem is you're in the White House. So why is that not 50 states? You're going to tell me what you strongly suggested to other groups or other states?
Every day for the health and well-being of families and communities. I'm proud of what we've done in terms of expanding access to capital for small businesses. I love small businesses. So back to who I am. So my mother worked very hard. My sister Maya and I.
Here we go.
Sometimes she, would have to work later on weekends. And
so her pandering to black people is to always talk about her working single mother. And me and my sister Maya would do this because my mom sometimes had to work late. Now she's going to tell you about the old black lady in her building. Watch, here it comes.
We had a second mother who lived two doors down, Mrs. Shelton.
Yeah,
who ran and we would go to Miss Shelton's to have dinner or whatever. Miss Shelton ran the nursery school, and we lived on the apartment on top of the nursery school. Miss Shelton was a small business owner.
Wow.
And she was a matriarch of the community. She would hire locally. She mentored. I love our small businesses and the work we're doing, expanding access to capital for small businesses. And I could go on and on and on.
Wow, you just sidestepped black entrepreneurship like that as well, and then tried to go into this woman thing, leaving out the part that you were in Oakland. So chances are that woman who was at that shelter or was running the daycare was a black woman, Mrs. Shelton. So you're going to say, Mrs. Shelton was over here taking care of me and my sister too. We'd go down there to the daycare. So she was helping your Caucasian single mother while you were basically getting the best of all worlds. Boy, oh boy. Let's finish.
Many things that I'm proud of that we have done that have been, I think, in many ways, and I say this humbly, that have been transformational for our country.
Well, 60 years later, a story I heard growing up in the movement was how they didn't let women speak at the march. Well, they'll be speaking this march, but more important, there's a woman of color in the White House that speaks for democracy every day.
You see, Reverend Al actually got that one right. So why was he careful not to call her a black woman as a woman of color in the White House? Now, everybody else want to talk about first black woman, first black woman, first black woman. He strategically says first woman of color in the White House. Okay. Nothing to see here.
Come a long way in 60 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rev.
So we just choked through that interview. Y'all see what type of time they on. This is the Democratic move. So I guess right now their idea is do the same old, same old. Let's go ahead and let's try to tell black people that this is the most important election ever. And, you know, we don't vote and we're going to be back in slavery. Family, don't let them talk about no voter rights. If they're not talking about white women losing voter rights, then voter rights are fine. Don't waste your time in that conversation because it's meaningless, pointless, and only a tool for them to shame you into voting. There is no problem with our voting rights. We're all citizens. So who are you looking to get voter rights for? We're fine. Citizens are fine. What's going on? So with that being said, Kamala Harris tells Al Sharpton that we need a coalition to get things done. And I say, hell no. Hopefully you do too. Because this is a problem that we are going to have to face, fight, and handle. It ain't going away. And never forget about these people like Al Sharpton.
Got to watch these old niggas.
That's right. Absolutely have to. And when it comes down to that coalition, just remember how our black folks in our community always had an understanding of the difference and the importance of delineation, such as Brother Malcolm.
Thank you right there. I would not limit our employment demands to Negroes. I would include Puerto Ricans and other minorities throughout our country, which have been similarly discriminated against, though not for so long a period of time as Negroes.
Puerto Ricans weren't enslaved. Yeah, this is a problem that stems from slavery. And this compensation, yes, sir, this compensation is coming to people who were enslaved by the white man for 400 years. The Puerto Ricans don't even fit into this picture.
Well, they do fit into it.
No,
they do fit into it.
The problem is the Negro problem. They're not lynching Puerto Ricans.
If a dark-skinned Puerto Rican went down to Mississippi, he probably would be lynched too.
Spanish, he wouldn't be lynched.
No, they don't.
It's the Negro here, and as long as he can speak Spanish or some other language, or if he ties his head up with a turban or something, he can go anywhere in Mississippi or in your home that he desires.
You're not aware of the fact, are you, that African students have been arrested in our demonstrations in the South?
When they
speak French.
When they have been mistaken for the so-called Negro in America, they've been arrested.
What I'm saying is,
what he's saying is, and what I'm saying is, that coalition has only been nothing but exploitive for foundational Black Americans. And anybody that's Black pushing that idea that we need a coalition, well, you get one of these. Sambo. Because all you do
shuffling and scratching and bootlicking and buck dancing.
For them talking about a coalition because they get Black folks on board with the coalition, and all of a sudden, south of the border is going to be like this. And then it'll be the coalition actually is the reason why y'all got reparations. BS. Hashtag hands off our reparations.
You have no rights here. We're not under the empire.
Babylon is falling. Babylon is falling. Let it fall and let us rise. Can you dig it? I hope so. Family, because we have to watch out for these grifters, these tethers, these hanger-ons, and these these swindlers, bamboozlers, some of them in political office, some of them in pulpits, some of them on TV, and some of them in print. But for all of them, I can firmly say, no tangibles, no vote. And if you believe that you would ever get foundational Black Americans to get back on that minority coalition crew and that minority coalition ideal system, well, family, I will say I could pretty sure I'm going to speak for myself. Beatzilla PDX official, those of us here at the Beatzilla PDX official show, and those of you in the chat, the grassroots, and the voices of new Black media, I would say, I'm pretty sure it's okay to say I speak for everybody when I say we absolutely are not going for a minority coalition idea again. Only tangibles. But you Democrats, Biden sexuals, DNC members, whoever needs to hear this, if you believe this idea will work against us and work in your favor, well, we proudly dedicate this song to you.
Get up off of that cocaine and get up off of that crack. Get yourself together and get your mind back.
That's right. That's right, family. So you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at BeatZillaPDX. Email me at ourrealtruth@gmail.com. And if you want to put some money in the bucket, help support this channel, you definitely can do so by way of donation at Cash App, $BeatZillaPDX. That is Cash App, $BeatZillaPDX. And at PayPal at Zilla Muzak. That is ZILLAMUZAK at PayPal. So thank y'all for tuning in to this good Wednesday night midweek report news break. And for those of you who have tuned in to the Twitter spaces earlier. So, you know, because we have to get on these all misinformation about our culture. And this is right here. We are addressing our vote and our political stance, which you have to do at all times. So with that being said, family, make sure you stay tuned to this channel, like and share. Hit that notification bell. And if you want to, you can also become a member of this channel as well. So with that being said, I will see y'all for the weekly wrap up. Stay Black, stay vigilant, stay alive. Black first, Black first, Black first. Shalom, y'all.
When you know who Satan is,
Yes, sir.
you don't have to kill him. No. The stone of truth.
Yeah.
See, that's what you throw.
Yes, right, right.
Allah says, had we wished to take a pastime from before, surely we would have done it. Nay, we cast truth at falsehood till we knock out its brains. Every one of you that knows the truth, stand up and tell it from the mountaintop. Black people can't take it no more. So wherever you are on the job, in the factory, I don't care where you are. If you know the truth, stand up on the truth and tell Satan, who the hell are you to try and pick my friends? Farrakhan is God's man.
And you are from the enemy of God. So to hell with you. Stand up on it like a man.